How you doing, guys? Eric from RuleTheWasteland.com once again. I know I've been very intermittent with making videos lately. I haven't been able to do a lot, and there is unfortunately a reason for that. And it's also for those of you who notice I'm getting all skinny. It's because I haven't been able to work out for about almost a year. Anything serious anyways. So, like I've always talked about on this channel, the shit the fan type stuff that you're most likely to have to deal with isn't going to be a, isn't going to be a nuclear bomb or a huge, societal collapse. That stuff's possible, but what's much more likely for you to have to deal with is all the real world stuff, like car accidents, like job loss, like medical issues, and that's unfortunately what I've been going through for the past almost exactly a year. So it all started in October, roughly, a few months before October. I finally went to the doctor in October because I've been having like nerve pain going down my leg. And, they always start off with the random, squeeze this rubber band between your legs, same thing they tell 80-year-old ladies. That didn't go away. I kept pushing for an MRI because I could look on the chart, and you can find charts just by simple Googling that show, this is where the nerve pain is. This is where these nerves correspond to. So I was like, I'm pretty sure I have a problem in my spine, like L4, L5. And they're like, they thought it was maybe abdominal or something. So I was like, whatever, any testing is fine. Did a CT scan, because also whenever I would squeeze my core, it would cause this pain, and it just kept steadily getting worse. And CT scan didn't show anything, so I finally got them to do the MRI. Sure enough, got a mass in my spine at L3. So I was off by one vertebrae. 30 minutes of Googling, I was off by one vertebrae, and it took the VA 6 months to figure it out. Whatever. The good thing is that the VA has not been particularly hard to work with during this process or really pushing back on anything. They've just been initially dismissive and then very slow, which is, typical of the VA certainly these days. So they let me know that I have a mass basically in the spinal canal at around L3, L4. And I was like, oh shit. So at that point I was like, well, it's 50% chance I'm done for. Then they did more, to scan everything basically from entire spine, thoracic spine, cervical spine, head. Head's fine, luckily, but then they were like, you also have 2 lesions on your spine in thoracic spine. I forget which 2. So I was like, okay, so now I went from 50% chance thinking I'm going to die to 100% chance, 110%. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm a goner. Start to figure out who gets my stuff. They did a bone scan where they inject you with some radioactive stuff after that. And luckily it showed that the lesions are most likely some kind of hemangioma, which is just a cluster of overgrowth of blood vessels or some other kind of tissue, and almost certainly not cancerous. So that's the good news. It went back to 50% chance I'm going to die. And eventually figured out, did all the more testing, did MRIs with contrast. I've had a ton of MRIs in the past several months. And pretty much settled on the fact that it is a nerve sheath tumor basically on my spine at L3. The good news about that is that it is almost always, not almost always, but very often benign. If it is cancerous, it's usually spreads there after you have cancer somewhere else in the body. So far, there's no indications that there's cancer anywhere else in my body. So I just have a growth of tissue in the outer sheath of the nerve that is basically filling up the spine canal in that area and pushing on it. So the good news is that it's probably not cancer, and even if it is cancer, it seems to be limited to the tumor that's there. The bad news is there's a tumor crushing the biggest, some of the biggest nerves in my body, and that feels about how you would expect. It started out from, being like a twinge when I would do certain things, to being a twinge when I do almost anything, to being semi-constant pain, all the way up to, and I've started on some nerve blocking medication, which made a difference, and had to slowly up that, but it's been getting steadily worse to the point where I really haven't been able to do almost anything for the past couple months. And there's been a few episodes where the Cenobites visited me to show me some new horizons of human experience, just put it that way.
Pain. How dare you use that word? What you think of as pain is only a shadow.
It was incredibly intense. So I am scheduled for surgery. That is on later this month, where they're going to do a laminectomy where they actually take off a piece of your spine, like the back ridge portion, so they can get in there. Normally the surgery is done for people who have damaged discectomies to replace a herniated disc, things like that, or if you have or abnormal bone growth or whatever. But so the initial process is the same, except for me, it's to remove this tumor. So the good news is that this is, it's serious surgery, obviously, but it's fairly straightforward for the initial part. The prognosis should be good. The only thing that's undetermined is how aggressively adhered this tumor is to my spine. So it all depends on how hard it is to get off. The initial laminectomy part, that's very straightforward. It's done the same way every time pretty much. Obviously, it's going to involve cutting into my back, taking a piece of my spine off. It's not minor, but like I said, it is fairly well... They got their process down for that part of it, and they said the prognosis after that all depends on how stuck this thing is on. So they said sometimes they slough off pretty easily, sometimes you have to cut away at them more, which could raise the risk of nerve damage, stuff like that. So the good news is prognosis long term is fairly decent, obviously, and from what I understand, as long as it goes well, I have an expectation of pretty much returning back to baseline. I have to talk to them a little bit more about if there's some things that I can't ever do again or whatever, which hopefully isn't the case, because the part of the spine that they're removing isn't really structural. It's it's not the actual front of the vertebrae that have the discs in between to support weight. It's actually just the part that protects the spine. So we'll have a hole there would be recovered by muscle and scar tissue, but I don't know if that means if there's like a certain place you punch me in the back, I'm gonna die from now on or whatever. But basically, I just wanted to make this video to let everyone know where I've been. For the people that I've had different types of collaborations with and stuff, I'm really sorry I've been so slow with that. It just depends on, sometimes I can't move at all. Other times I feel almost close to normal. But it definitely has been getting worse and worse and worse to the point where the past month or so I haven't been able to do much of anything, and I'm just trying to get through the next couple weeks for the surgery. So another tidbit of good news is, since I do have VA benefits, it greatly reduces the cost that I have to deal with. Now, it's not completely free like some people think, or like it is for some people. There's different types of co-pays and what that I have to deal with for the medicine and certain elements of it. But that will keep it in the hundreds or thousands, a few $1,000s is what I'm expecting total by the end of it, rather than the whatever unholy number that it would be otherwise, tens of thousands at least, maybe even hundreds of thousands for surgery like that and recovery and all the MRIs and medicine for the past year or so. As much as the VA is frustrating to deal with just because of how government bureaucracies and entities like that move so slowly and with so much bureaucracy, I am definitely grateful that I am not being burdened with an insane medical cost. Bad news is that while my direct medical costs aren't very high, relatively speaking, and it'll still probably end up being a couple $1,000, is that everything I do for money, I don't have a normal job. I do a collection of what could be considered side hustles, and they all involve me just actually doing things, a lot of physical or semi-physical things, and I've been pretty much completely stopped from doing almost all of them. Like, I haven't been able to do the storage unit stuff, so I can't empty storage units and sell. There's different types of like handyman type gigs that I do to bolster that. Can't do any of that. So it definitely has impacted my income, and there have been some people who ask. So as much as I hate to go money grubbing on the internet, for those of you who are interested, I have created a fundraiser, and I would, if you've ever got anything beneficial out of my content, I would appreciate just any sort of support for that. It's a pretty modest amount in my opinion for such a, being basically out of work for a few months and a surgery, the amount that I would need to basically get back to zero and carry me through the next, month or so until I'm completely recovered from the surgery as well. And I don't want you guys to think that I'll be on the street if you can't give me any money. That's not the case, but it definitely would help get me back to zero if you can contribute. And if you want to purchase any of these shirts or survival fishing kits, get yourself something that helps me a little bit as well, that would be awesome too. So don't feel bad if you can't, but I would absolutely definitely appreciate any sort of contribution to that. So I'll put the link in the description for that. Definitely help alleviate the stress of what the next couple months are going to be like, because I've been kind of having to floated a little bit for a while just because I can't do much. But mainly I'm just making this video to let you guys know where I've been, why it's been sporadic, and that will probably keep up for the next 6 to 8 weeks at least until I'm supposed to be. Everything I've seen says you should be taking about 3 to 4 weeks off of work for this surgery, which is in a couple weeks. So I still have 6 to 8 weeks that I really won't be able to do much of anything. So that's why. But For the people who I have said I'm doing collaborations with, I still plan on doing those videos. They might just be more simple videos, but it just depends on the day. Some days, like when the medication's working and it's not, you know, inflamed or anything, I can at least walk around and do movements like that fairly normally. But other times, I just have to make sure I sit there and try not to move. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching. I'm not going anywhere as long as everything goes well. Don't end up with a gimpy leg or something. But I just want to let you guys know, because like I said, it has been sporadic, and I've had some of you guys have reached out to me and asked what's, you know, where I've been. So I appreciate that always. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.